I was definitely going to school because of what my dad thought. So I did that, but I didn't really like it. I didn't enjoy it. I found math came easy to me. I did well in math. I didn't have to really study that hard. I mean, I did, but it wasn't like hard work. It just kind of came, and I understood concepts, and it just was easy. But as I was doing it, I remember being in these big classrooms and just kind of really just not enjoying myself. Like, why am I even doing this? Why am I here? Why? And kind of going through not a crisis, but really kind of, who am I and what am I aiming at? Because I still felt aimless, and I had this realization I was really doing it because my dad thought that's what I should do. And at the time I said, well, it's better than doing nothing, so I'll take it. But as I was going through, I just really felt no drive or passion.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Matt Brown, and you're listening to the Every L Podcast. Each episode, we'll have a different guest come on and talk about when life hands you an L, is it really a loss or is it something else? Because not every L's a loss. So sit back, relax, or do whatever you guys do to get comfortable as we get into this. Let's go. Welcome everyone to another episode of Every L Podcast, where we have different guests come on and talk about things that happened in their past, where at the time, when people in the thick of it, they honestly feel like it's just a loss. It's disastrous. Things didn't happen the way they wanted to. The plans they've made just never happened, never materialized, and they feel some sort of way. It's not Snapchat worthy. It's not Instagram worthy. It's not Twitter worthy. It's just not social media worthy, full stop. So they're copping an L. But now you look back in hindsight and look at it and go, wow, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be here, because I wouldn't have learned whatever it may have been or gained whatever it is. So these stories are by real people being open and honest in a way where not many people would feel comfortable. But so I'm absolutely grateful for each and every one of my guests that come on and share what they share. This person I have on today, as you can see from the artwork, his name is Travis. Travis, I've known for a couple of years now, I would like to say. And he is an absolutely fantastic human being. He has been so warm and welcoming. The way he presents himself is just top tier. He's always got time for you. He's got his own family. He's got his own work he does. He's got so much going on, but he makes time for you. And that is just that just defines who he is as an individual. If you need someone to look at who sets the standard consistently, he is that guy. He's very eloquent. He's very professional, because part of his job is talking to people. But not only that, he doesn't do it from maybe a way that could come across condescending at all. He is very compassionate. He's very empathetic, and he's willing to learn and grow as well as teach people what he already knows. So it's just a perfect blend of everything that you need. And he's also a dad, a really good one at that. I'm not going to big him up too much because his head won't be able to get out the door. However, I have Travis here, who I'll let him introduce himself as he sees fit, share what he feels comfortable sharing before we go on to discussing what his first L is.
Can we just stop the podcast there and just call it? I mean, that was like,
no,
that was the most eloquent introduction. Wow. I very beyond kind words, Matt. But yeah, wow. It's not often you hear those types of introductions about yourself. I'm like, wow, is that me? Shocking. I'm like, I think I'm that person. Maybe that's a good thing. And my other funny thought was like, so are we getting married? Is that what's happening? Like, are we?
Mate,
that was
if you'll take me,
of like, sounds like a proposal. No, but I appreciate it, Matt. That's so very sweet. I mean, I feel really touched by that introduction. Like, really, I didn't think. Yeah, you never know what people think of you. Always, like the depth of it, and yeah, very touched by that. So I really appreciate those kind words. My name is Travis. I live in Southern California. I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. My day job is I work as a licensed clinician, licensed marriage and family therapist or counselor, whatever word you want to use. But that's my day job. And by night, I'm, super dad, and always on. I would say as a father. It's a little bit about me. I like music. I like outdoors. I do like the beach, not to be cliche, but I do love the ocean. We live not too far away from it. Here in Southern California, we like going with the kids, and I love playing in the water with the kids and the sand, and kind of just the fresh air. So it's very nice. A pro of where we live is that. And we love going to the mountains with the family, kind of going up and camping and getting away from everything.
Okay,
so,
you can stop now because this feels like an L for me because I live in the UK. I have none of this.
Yeah, well, part of me like wants to see the UK. I haven't been to the UK yet, so that's kind of like I can't wait to go to the UK. So it's interesting. I guess sometimes we want what we don't have.
Mate, all I can say is when I watch your YouTube channels out there that talk about, look at the camera quality, it's so amazing. That's because you have daylight. I have to worry about camera phones that have good night features because it's just always overcast.
That's funny. Yeah, I understand how blessed I'm living in California, and there are pros and cons. There's definitely drawbacks. We won't talk about that, but yeah, I think right now I'm in a phase of life of just figuring out, having kids every day. I would say I'm constantly being challenged by my kids is something that you don't think about as being a parent, is that really every day you're challenged to grow yourself. And I think that's something that you don't really realize it, I think, till becoming a parent, but you are challenged. There's stuff that you do really well at. And I find there's things I thought I did well, but I don't do very well that I have to constantly grow. So my kids challenge me on the daily, and we also have some amazing moments together. But so I guess going back about an L, right? So I guess that's what this is about, or what I thought was an L. So I have a few, but I guess, trying to think of which one I wanted to talk about. I guess this goes back to my younger years. I would say probably my education. We'll go there. What I thought was I guess at the time I found difficulty with and trying to figure out who I was and struggling when I was in my, late, just after high school and then kind of early 20s, trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do. But I guess I got to start there. Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, go for it. Take it from the top where you feel it's relevant and take us on that journey for why, what the plans was and how the plans didn't go accordingly.
Yeah. So senior year of high school, my parents separated. So, or right before I started my senior year, so 12th grade. So I'm not sure what they would call that in the UK, but they decided to separate. So that was kind of a big change in the family, as you could imagine. And in my home, it was kind of a shock. It wasn't expected. It was like at a left field feeling. It wasn't, from what I can tell, there was no signs. It wasn't like they were arguing all the time. It was just one day they said that. It was kind of like, oh, wow, that's shocking. So that happened. And there's a whole story there, but long story short for that is, my dad moved away, back a couple hours away. And I was with my mom, my brother, my younger brother. And when I graduated high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went to what we call here a junior college, which is essentially like a 2-year college versus a traditional 4-year university college here in the States. So I did that route because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I quote unquote needed college. So I went, and it was also because for me to live at home, I needed to be doing something, kind of the rules of the home, so to speak. So I was going to junior college, taking classes, not really sure what I wanted to do, just kind of, doing the basics, what was required of me, and I was working. And then a year after that, I moved down to San Diego, which is South California as well. And that I was living about an hour and a half away from that previously, but we moved down with my family. My parents were going to try on their marriage again. So they were kind of doing their thing, but I moved in with them, and I had buddies that actually lived down there. So I was actually going to move down there anyway with some friends because I wanted to get away from my hometown. I just wanted to see something different, but I decided to live with my parents because it was free, because it's costly to live on your own. It's not cheap. And so I was and then I went to a big college, big university there, like a 4-year. And at the time I was a math major because that's what my dad thought I should do. So I was definitely going to school because of what my dad thought. And so I did that, but I didn't really like it. I didn't enjoy it. I found math came easy to me. I did well in math. I didn't have to really study that hard. I mean, I did, but it wasn't like hard work. It just kind of came, and I understood concepts, and it just was easy. But as I was doing it, I remember being in these big classrooms and just kind of really just not enjoying myself. Like, why am I even doing this? Why am I here? Why? And kind of going through not a crisis, but really kind of, who am I and what am I aiming at? Because I still felt aimless, and I had this realization I was really doing it because my dad thought that's what I should do. And at the time I said, well, it's better than doing nothing, so I'll take it. But as I was going through, I just really felt no drive or passion. And so I remember I completed one semester at this 4-year and decided to just stop and just work, just to kind of think and just work full time. And I remember telling my dad, and as a quick side note, me and my dad's relationship now is amazing, probably the best we ever had. But back then it wasn't so great, more disconnected. We didn't really talk that often. He didn't really listen well to people. It was more about what he thought and what he wanted and his ideas versus having a dialogue. Very different today. Again, another story. But I remember telling him, and he got really mad, upset that I was not going to college, and didn't really hear why. It just kind of dismissed everything that I was saying. And I felt really hurt by that, really frustrated, a whole bunch of emotions. But I knew it felt right to stop, because I just felt like, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting money. I'm wasting time. This is pointless. So I stopped. Hard conversation with my dad. And then shortly after that, I moved out of my parents' house for the first time and moved in with some buddies and roommates. And that was actually the best thing I ever did, was getting out of my parents' house, giving me some space from just their stuff, which, looking back at the time, I thought there's a couple L's in the story. At the time, I thought, why am I wasting money moving out when I could live at home for free and figure life out? But at the time, I took that on, saying, you know what, I'd rather have to spend money and pay for myself, but have peace, versus be in a place where it's just kind of chaotic. So I moved out, lived with roommates. There was 4 guys in a 2-bedroom, it's like bunk beds. It was, it was great. It's like young college days, and, stayed up late and eating crisps, I guess would be what I meant. Crisps or chips, French fries on our end, which aren't French. No, but we have like some good, like Mexican burrito shops, like in San Diego. There are, there's one on every corner, amazing Mexican food, carne asada and all this stuff, and, eating food and hanging out late with my buddies and stuff, and just living, young 20s life. I then decided to go back to school. And again, now I had a passion. And at the time, I don't know if you know this, people don't, but I actually decided I wanted to study theology. So Christian theology. And I went to school, and I actually really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed studying that. And so I went back to school and got a bachelor's in that. And that actually didn't feel like an L at the time. I felt like I was really finding something I cared about. And then I started a master's program, upper division, graduate school. And then the first semester into that, my parents, to wrap up, to kind of bring full circle what happened with them, they finally got divorced and finally decided to fully end it, like actually paperwork and everything. Because before they were kind of separated, kind of sort of working on the relationship in the background. But this time they actually were done. And I remember that phone call, because I remember just thinking, what am I doing again? I feel lost. So that really hit me hard. And I really felt kind of just, a lot of grief, a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of kind of just feeling lost, and like, what am I doing again? Kind of made me question even what I was doing, and feeling, am I doing the right thing? And just kind of made me go through this whole just space of just really questioning everything and having no firm footing on what I was doing. So kind of felt like an L, like, am I wasting my time again, and stuck? And so I stopped going to school again, because I just couldn't think. And at the time, I knew a counselor, and someone recommended me to go see this counselor. And I never thought of counseling before, never even crossed my mind previously. I kind of knew much like most people do if they don't know what counseling is. It's like, it's what you see on TV and what you hear, some of the classic, tropes, as well as some real stuff, kind of a mixed bag. But I knew it was someone I trusted, and they said, hey, this might help you right now. So I kind of went based upon the referral from someone that I trusted and that I respected. Still kind of not knowing what I was going to do, but had an idea. So I started doing that, and I started working on my stuff, my own fears, anxieties, doubts, pain from my parents' divorce, just kind of literally everything, and walking through some of that, which in turn, I found through that process that I found profound help in that space of seeing a counselor and seeing the benefit of it. That part of me then became to realize, I think I really want to help people on this capacity, this type of help, this type of being with people's pain and being kind of a beacon of hope or light or a guide, so to speak, to navigate just life, the difficulty, the confusion, the hurt, the anger, the frustration, all these things. And my counselor at the time as well saw that in me, that I had a gifting, and kind of challenged me on it a bit to think about it. And I remember the first few months thinking about it, I kind of doubted it. Even though part of me wanted to do it, I still felt like, am I going to waste my time again? Is this going to be something that just turns into some other part of me that an avenue I go down, and I end up realizing it's another dead end? And do I want to have another L in my life of wasting and having friends now a little older? I was still like in my early 20s, but feeling this pressure that I should know what I needed to do, and having friends that kind of found what they were doing and doing a little bit of that comparison game and feeling a little lost in that. And I remember looking into some schools at the time and kind of looking at their admission process and what it would take to go into the programs, and kind of at the time really being stuck in fear and kind of crippled by it. Like, I don't want to do it. I want to risk. I don't want to have another L. I don't want to waste my time, waste my money. Is this really something I really feel like I want to do? Or is it just like a moment, kind of questioning, looking back at the time, like everything I've done has been kind of out of my own worries or fears or what people thought I should do. Is this really what I want to do? But the more I sat on it, the more I reflected on it, I began to talk to other people I respected that knew me and kind of pitch it to them. Like, what do you think about this? You know me. What are your thoughts? And really getting wisdom. And I take a while to make a decision. I've always kind of been that way. I'm very calculated and look at the different ups and downs of a decision. And so there's a pro to that. And there's also a drawback, obviously, because sometimes I don't make a decision. Back in the day, I wouldn't make a decision out of the fear of making the wrong decision. But I did my due diligence. I got good feedback, and I was kind of healing some of my fears anyway, and counseling kind of in tandem and parallel. So as I was healing some of my stuff and letting go of my own fears, anxieties, and worries, I began to take risks. And so I found this program and knew I was going to take on school debt, which was a fear of mine, because I was like, ooh, it's a lot of debt. And if it's not the right thing, I was stuck on that for almost like 6 months of like, that's a lot of debt. I know it's an investment, but if it's the wrong thing, that's not good debt. That's like more debt. And now I'm just kind of screwed. But I took the risk and I did it, and I instantly fell in love. And it was psychology. So I went back for a second degree in college or university, and it was psychology. And I loved every second of it. It was the first time that, outside of math when I was younger, that I pretty much got the A's and everything, or top marks, top scores and everything, without really trying, because I cared about it. It was something that I wanted to consume. I wanted to read. I wanted to understand. And so it kind of went from an L to this switch of, no, I'm now finding something I truly love and adore. And then I went on to, once I graduated from university or college, I had another moment of questioning of, do I want to continue this and go to graduate school to then become what you need to do to become a therapist or counselor in the States. And another time I was kind of like unsure and kind of testing and not sure if it'd be an L or not again. That kind of came up again, not as strong, but it was kind of in the background. Like, is this really what you want? And ended up the doors opened, and it wasn't easy getting into the school I got into, but I got in, and it was kind of a sign to me that this is where I need to go. And then finished graduate school in 3 years, and then 3,000 hours in California after graduate school to get licensed in the state of California. And that's another 2.5, 3 years of work, and then exams. And then, that was 7 years ago that I passed my exam, and now I'm here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And looking back, if I look at my story, and I use my story a lot when I work with like young, late adolescents or young adults, because so many of them nowadays are so crippled by having to figure out what they need to do now, that they should know what they need to do. They should already have it figured out by 18, 19, 20, 21. And so I often use my story as a testament to saying, hey, let me tell you a bit about my story. And I do it a little quicker than what I'm doing now, little, kind of share what I need to share depending on the client. But I share them saying, I thought I was wasting my time. But as I look back, it's like, no, all of the decisions I made, none of it actually was a waste. It actually got me to where I am now. Even my degree in theology, it actually, which I love that too, it got me to it. These were stepping stones that got me to this place. Even my parents' divorce and then someone recommending counseling, all these decisions I thought that were kind of a waste of my time and dead ends and were frustrations and were fears, I just kept kind of taking steps and kind of moving, so to speak, the ball forward, kind of like this, back and forth, left and right, kind of jagged, so to speak. It wasn't like this nice, clean, linear line. But looking back, I don't think if I wouldn't have gone through those things, I don't know if I would have made the decision at the time to go to pursue counseling, because all of those things had an impact on my life, as well as the decisions I made to kind of go down different paths. They all ended up getting me to the place where I'm today. That no, all of those were important. None of it was actually a loss at all. They were all part of the story of shaping me to become who I am today. And so I often share that now with the late teens, young adults that I see in my office when they start to question, because so many of us question that, as I share saying, no, this is actually, I want you to see this as just part of your story, part of your journey, that it's not a loss actually in the slightest. It might feel that way, but the reality is this is all kind of your training ground, so to speak, to become to whatever it is you will become, that this will be part of that story. This will be part of the journey. And so looking back now, like, I'm very thankful for my long college, university path. It wasn't short. It was very much long, and numerous college decisions. But again, I look back now with so much grace on my life and empathy, understanding that I was just trying to figure it out. And I see now how all those connected dots really have shaped me to the man, to the dad, to the therapist, to who I am today, that I wouldn't go back and trade it, because I'd be a different person if it wasn't for those experiences. So I really have. And I've looked at it this way for years now. Like, it's nothing new. I mean, I've definitely looked at my life now through the lens of gratitude and seeing that's all part of my journey. But when I was in the thick of it, when I was like 19, 20, 21, 22, absolutely not. I was very much worried and afraid and stuck and questioning a lot and doubtful and unsure of who I was, unsure of myself. And I was that, when you're in it, I did not see it that way. Now I can. Now I see it that way. Now I understand. Now I have the lens and the perspective and the ability to look back and say, oh yeah, this all makes sense now. And even seeing the doors, how certain doors opened and certain doors weren't, and certain doors closed. And like, wow, like that changed the path. Like, that door opened and enabled me to go here, but it didn't have to open. It could have just stayed closed. And I don't know what would happen then, like what decision I would have made, but for whatever reason, that door was open to me, and I chose to walk through it. And so it's always fascinating to look back now. So that's kind of that's what I thought was an L, but I realized, no, it's not an L at all. It's part of who I am, and I celebrate it, and I talk about it, and I use that story to help others where they are, and kind of say, no, let's look at that from this perspective. Let's start to change our view on our life up to this point. Let's start to examine how we can use this for our growth rather than our hindrance.
That's really powerful, and I appreciate for sharing. I do find it interesting because hearing you speak so eloquently about it, my head says to me, he's got this. He understands how during it just wasn't seeing it for what it was, just in it and just feeling everything and questioning everything that needs to be there, because it's a lot of debt, it's a lot of pressure, there's consequences to everyone's actions, especially your own. And this is where you're thinking, boy, there's going to be at least 5 figures worth of debt I'm going to get myself into. So I need to make sure there's an investment.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a return on that. So I need to be earning that big bucks when I do it.
Right.
But I find it also interesting that you being the person that you are, it can be difficult to accept that, because you're in a capacity where you help people, not just in your professional capacity, but also outside of work, especially with your children.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been able to say, it's part of your journey. It's part of who you are. Effectively, you're saying success comes in cans, not can'ts or cannot. So you focus on what you can do, and it will be jagged, but you'll get there as long as you pursue it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then if your kids or someone you cared about was to be making mistakes, you might struggle to accept that because you want to help them.
Mm.
Did anyone try to help you with your decisions you need to make? Because you said that you dithered with certain decisions that you had to make until you fully sort of fleshed it all out and you knew what you were going to do. Sometimes the decision you would make is not making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But was there anyone that could help you to make a decision sooner rather than later when it came to the fork, the fork, what's it called? The junction.
Yeah, the fork. Yeah, the fork. I mean, I would say that I definitely had people in my life that I went to. I found mentors. If I didn't have those type of people, again, I don't know what would have happened. I know that they were integral to kind of process and talk with them. I'm both a verbal processor as well as kind of in my own head. But as I talk things through, it helps me understand more. And so having those outlets and people that were older than me that have lived life, I had some older mentors in my life that I was able to kind of talk with. And that really, they did help me. And I don't know what would have happened if I didn't reach out to them or if I didn't talk. I don't know if I would have been, I mean, maybe I can't tell, but I can't imagine I would be where I am today if I didn't have those type of people, which I think also I've realized the importance because of that, the importance of that we all need some type of relationship mentors that we can connect with and talk to and gain wisdom from. Like the importance of having someone, at least one person in our life that we can kind of bounce ideas off of, especially someone who's older and that's lived life, like kind of that mentor role. So I've really realized the profound impact of having those types of people in your life and the need for that kind of generational, wealth, so to speak, like intellectual wealth, emotional wealth, all those parts that go into it. Because I really did tap into some of those that happened to be in my life at the time. And cause I trusted them. I respected what they had to say. And they never told me what to do. They were very good at it, like challenging me, making me think, but also with encouragement and giving me some perspective.
How did you find those individuals?
Good question. They happen to be where I was. So I've always been someone to cultivate relationship. I think it's always kind of been part of me. Even since I was a kid, I've always kind of been okay with doing that. And as a gift, I guess, if you will, to cultivate and connect with people and have conversation. And at the time, I was, these certain people in my life, one was my counselor who I did respect. And I know that she, being my counselor and stuff, she had a definitely perspective into my life. Not everyone was privy to. So she definitely challenged me. But then I had some other people in my life. At the time, I was at a church and I had some mentors there, a couple that I respected and I did music and stuff. So they were part of the music group as well in the church. And so we would regularly get together outside and just have relationship dinner together, food and invite me over. And they were like my parents' age. So their kids were my age, but they were kind of mentors to me. And so just having conversations, having the capacity to talk to both of them on a semi-regular basis. And then when these school things came up, I remember even saying, hey, would you mind me talking to you about this? And they say, of course. And so we would just have these dialogues. And so, yeah. And then I had a couple of friends that I trusted too, my age that kind of knew me, that I would kind of just talk with and throw ideas out there and they would kind of give feedback. So yeah, so people within my vicinity, just friendships that I cultivated, and then my counselor. But I know that might be a challenge for some people. I know that that's hard for some people to have those types of relationships, that doesn't come easy for some, but I know how important they are in our life. And so not that I'm encouraging anyone to do this, but I encourage everyone to do this, to have some type of good relationships that you can bounce ideas off, that listen well, that give you some guidance. I think it's such a needed thing. Even now in my age, like I need that. I need those relationships. And even now as a almost 40-year-old dad with 3 kids as a therapist, I still need that. I still need guidance. I still turn to people for checking in and wisdom. Like absolutely. I don't think I ever will not, unless, I guess when I'm 90 or 100 years old, maybe I won't, but
you need someone to help you send an email or something, or whatever the latest tech is.
Yeah. I'll need a different type of mentor, like a younger generation mentor to help me with
life, virtual
reality or something. But I think I think we do need good relationships and different types of relationships in our life. And so, yeah, I encourage people to cultivate those.
That's beautiful. And I'll ask you the question, based on how you see things now versus how you did when you was in it, pick a particular time that you can think of, but what would you say to your younger self when you was probably at your worst and you felt like you was in complete despair? You just felt, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pack it in. I'm just not going to make a decision. What would you say to your younger self? Bear in mind, this has no reflection or no ramification of what your life is today. But if you could go back to your younger self and just say, Travis, mate, what would it be?
I think the thing that I struggled with a lot when I was younger was trying to prove my worth and that I was enough. So I think I would just say, you don't need to prove yourself. You're enough the way you are. There's nothing you do to prove to anybody for acceptance or anything. Because I struggle with a lot of fear of being accepted and being enough when I was younger, and trying to get accolades to prove my worth and who I was, which is very classic for a lot of men. I find working with men now in therapy is that, trying to find that sense of who you are. So that's actually what I would say is earlier, if I could, is, hey, you're good. You don't need to prove anything, man. Because I think a lot of my fear was also rooted in that, in my story, even around school. That was kind of the deeper fear behind everything, was that kind of proving of it being enough and getting acceptance and everything like that. And
do you think your younger version of yourself would hear you say that? Or would you have to present the information in a different way for you to receive it?
If I came in, like Back to the Future style, like maybe I would. Maybe I would have heard it. Maybe I would have. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't know. I would like to think I would hear it with open arms. I'm sure that my younger self would have probably had some hesitation. I'm sure. I think I probably would have questioned it a bit. But gosh, if I was able to give that message from, future Trav to past Trav, that I always think of Dwight in The Office with Jim, and he sends the fax to himself from future Dwight with the coffee. I don't know if you remember that episode, if you ever watched The Office, but I would like to think that I would have accepted it, but I'm sure that I would have had some reservations around the message at the time.
I get that. I like asking the question just because I know people receive information in different ways, and no matter how clear you can be in the message you're providing, sometimes you can't receive it if it's just said to you. Sometimes it needs to be delivered in a different way just so that it receives and sinks in, and you're like, all right, cool, I understand the assignment. Let me just...
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think relationally would have been the answer. Definitely having a relationship type of investment, not like just like dropping in the mailbox, but someone taking the time and taking the effort to like be with me and sit with me and have that relational dynamic, I think is for sure the way it would have to be delivered.
That's sound. So you're saying it's not an L. And just to remind me again, what is it if it's not an L?
It's a win. It's life. It's not an L. It's part of my journey, part of my story that I'm proud to talk about and share, because it's those experiences I allowed them to shape me, and to see what I needed to learn in those moments and what life challenged me to learn, because life was presenting challenges for me. And so I was able to kind of look back and say, yeah, this was life challenging me in its own way, the universe challenging, whatever you want to call it. And I needed to learn some things or two. My identity did need to be challenged. And those difficult times, even with my parents, not that I don't wish that on anybody, but I think in that experience, my parents going through what they did and how it impacted our family, I made some decisions to look inward. Earlier on, I didn't. I definitely avoided it and did other things to avoid looking at that. And that's another L for a different day of I would get into relationships to avoid. And, especially during the holidays, I would always make sure I was dating someone so I wasn't lonely. So there's other things too that I would do to avoid. But I got to a point where I looked inward and really addressed what I needed to address and really look at, okay, what do I need to grow in? And I don't know if I had those experiences, if I would have looked as soon as I did, because, I was definitely having some difficult times, and I definitely answered the call to look inward, and at the right time, someone recommending me a therapist and a counselor. Like those are things that I look back and saying, yeah, those things I could have said no to the counselor. I said, no, I'm good. But I didn't, because I think there was a part of me that knew that I needed something different deep down. And I said yes to those things. So it's definitely not a no.
I think that's beautiful. I just love that. You just felt like all the doors around you effectively was shut. People were preoccupied in their own situations that led you to feel like you can't seek validation from external sources anymore because everyone else was preoccupied. So you had to look at yourself and think, mate, what am I worth? Well, this person said they're not talking to you. They're not there. Well, this person said they're not there either. Well, this person said, nah, mate, look in the mirror and tell me what you see. And you can look at a reflection all you want, but you got to look at the person in the mirror and see yourself and identify what you like, what you don't like. And sometimes go a little bit deeper and decide, why don't you like these things? Is it okay not to like these things? If you're minimizing anything that tells you, well, I don't like the taste of it, I don't like the texture of it, but you're saying, oh, man up. Who's that talking to you? That doesn't sound like you're being kind to yourself in any way, shape or form. Everyone has their right to like, dislike, or feel any which way about something. But if you don't have that relationship with yourself, it can become quite toxic. And then you're relying on other people to validate who you are, what you do, why you do it. And then social media is very good at doing this. If you don't get the notifications, if you don't get the validation from people you're never going to meet in your life, you're just forever hung up on it.
Yeah. When I will say this real quick, I think I feel like if social media was more prevalent at my age at the time, I have a feeling it would have made it much more difficult, because it wasn't that big of a thing when I was in my 20s. We had MySpace, but that was actually a whole other story about another L with a relationship that ended at the time, and I was not my best self. And I remember, it was not another L for a different day, but being on MySpace and I remember how it made things worse, I would say, for me at the time. But I didn't have TikTok and all things that kids have nowadays, that it's so much easier to compare yourself to everything else going on. So I think in a way I was probably saved from that, because I could see how I see kids now that are going through difficulty and they turn to social media, and it just makes things astronomically worse for them. They see all this stuff and it just becomes this big old hot ball of wax rat's nest for them. So yeah, I'm very thankful that I didn't have it, if I'm honest, back then. So.
Well, comparison is a thief of all joy, as they say. So quite fortunate about that. So if I can ask you for the next 2 minutes to selfishly plug yourself, where people can find you.
So you could find me on IG, which is Therapy for Dads, the number 4, Therapy for Dads. Website as well, therapyfordads.com. I have a podcast as well called Therapy for Dads, which is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Actually, Matt has been on my show a few times. I need to have him on again, kind of check in on him. Yeah, as Matt said, we've developed a relationship over the years that we met. And one fun thing about Instagram is that I've met some amazing people like Matt, and not even, he's from the UK. As you all know, most of you are probably from the UK, and I'm from California. And look at this. So a positive of social media is meeting people that you would never meet in such an amazing capacity. So that's how to find me. The easiest way, check it out, send me a DM, whatever, check out the podcast, check out my channel, ask me a question. I'm more than happy to help out if I can, or at least point you in the right direction, minimum. But that's the easiest way to find me.
Greatly appreciated. Well, thank you very much for your time. Folks, I hope you enjoy this, because this is a different format for me, and it's definitely going to be, I want to see what you feel about the length of time of this, because I wait to try something different, and I'm quite happy about how it's coming out. So I just want to again thank you, Travis, to you coming on and for sharing like you have. I think a lot of things have been taken away from it, and you've been so eloquent, you've been so concise in how you delivered it. Yes, there's other areas in which we could explore a little bit further when you have a little bit more time on your hands. But as it stands, as a package, I feel that will resonate with many people. I would like to, again, thank you for your candidness. It can be challenging for some people to open up in such a way, especially about personal things that are personal to you, that helped forge you to become the person you are. But I think we can all testify that sometimes you can go certain rough patches and it kind of makes you come out a little bit more refined. I'll use the analogy of sandpaper. Hell yeah, that thing's rough as anything. But the things a carpenter will tell you, that is their best friend. That is their probably most famous tool, because it helps everything to be smooth, and then they slap on the varnish and do whatever they do. But without that rough surface that they can use, it will forever be not adequate to do its job, or it will never fulfill its potential. So, saying all that, there's nothing about a caterpillar that tastes going to be a butterfly. I hope everyone enjoys themselves, and I will catch you in the next episode.